Alright, first and foremost, I gotta say, I wanted to do this video last night, but it got way too late. I had to be up in the morning, so I have to do this now. Unfortunately, my sister's kids are still wide awake and running through the halls, so you'll have to forgive me the noise. But, yeah, anyways, let's move on. Um, for those who don't know, the RoboCop trailer just came out, and I saw it, and I've had some time to think about it, and I kind of want to issue my thoughts. Now, let me explain my mind going into this. Those who know me know that I am not a person who is against reboots or remakes or what have you, for the sake of them being reboots or remakes. In fact, oftentimes I will welcome them. I will welcome a chance for closer adaptation to a source material. I will welcome a chance for what have you, you know? Um, a lot of times I don't really hold a whole lot of things sacred when it comes to film, especially if I felt it could have been done better. If someone comes along and says we're going to try to do it differently or do it better or do it closer to this, then there, you're welcome to it. Take a swing at it. I don't care. If you screw up, though, you're going to hear about it. That said, I honestly didn't think RoboCop needed this. There are reasons for that. It's very much a product of its era. Very much a classic film, a newer classic film, but it's one of those things where, it's very much a product of the 80s. That's true. So people might say it hasn't aged well, but honestly, I think it has. Um, it's honestly kind of timeless and really one of those things where it had a cultural commentary for the times that was actually pretty good. It was political without being too political. It didn't attack direct people or groups or ideas. It just kind of showed how stupidly far they can be taken. The entire concept of the violence was, speaking out against fascism in any and every form. It wasn't violence for the sake of violence. It wasn't, violence porn or anything like that. There was a reason for it. The reason that Murphy was shot up as bad as he was to show exactly how depraved these people were, how depraved society had become. The fact that criminals of that point in time are nowhere near what they are now. They've gotten progressively worse, though. Honestly, that could be argued with some of the recent findings near the border. But anyway, I digress. The thing is, it's very much a relevant and interesting and massively entertaining and pretty well written and pretty well done film. That being said, sure, I guess there's some things that, they had the potential to improve on. Graphics are better. Maybe they can make it seem a bit more futuristic and less, run down. Then again, though, the movie's kind of cheated in that because all we really saw were building interiors, the quote-unquote future vehicles for the, nicer, more equipped people. And, mostly it was like in the inner city and the slums of Detroit, which were and still are pretty run down. So, yeah, it is what it is. It worked, and it actually worked very well. But, I figured maybe let's see what they do with it, right? So, Comic-Con footage comes out, and didn't really leak that I know of, but I heard the description from people who were watching it, and I had some hope. Because based on the footage they had in there, there was some hope. They had said that there was also snippets of RoboCop's armor being the original coloring. There was, this and that. So maybe some of this footage, could turn out to, maybe like he starts out the color the company wants him, and then like they paint him later or something to disguise him or to signify a change of allegiance or what have you. I don't know. But yeah, it was very, it gave me a tiny little bit of hope. Like, maybe, we'll see. Because honestly, there's really no need to change the coloring of the look. I mean, you can change the armor, I guess, if you want to make it more, mobile or whatever you want to do. Honestly, I'll get to that in a minute, but the color scheme at least they could have kept, right? But then the trailer comes out. I gotta say I'm not really happy. Turns out a car bomb is what turns Alex Murphy into RoboCop. Not the violent shooting death that we got in the original version, which honestly, compared to what seeing as they show movies like Saw, Hostel, stuff like that in the theater, you'd think that really something similar at the very least could have been done. It really could have. But nope, we don't get that. Instead, we just get a car bomb. Which honestly is the first intro to the stepping stone of what could turn out to be a problem, in that it's rated PG-13. They have definitely toned this movie down, and it looks like they're going less for the hard-hitting, no holds barred storytelling of the original films in favor of widening the demographic. Like, even RoboCop 3, well, honestly, I think that RoboCop 3, if nothing else, had some pretty good action to it. It proved that you could have at least an entertaining RoboCop movie that didn't need the ultra violence, but no. See, this is one of those things where it's not toned down just because, we don't have to do this. It's one of those things where it's like purposely toned down, and not even necessarily toned down. It's like they cop out, and the people who are getting killed are like robots now, or are being killed in this really distorted version of heat vision or something. It's weird. See but we're gonna get to this. Honestly, I have no idea how in the world he's supposed to. They said that when they recover him, he's got 4th-degree burns on 80% of his body. Now, for those who don't know what 4th-degree burns are, 4th-degree burns are where it goes beyond the skin. It even goes beyond the muscle tissue right down into your bone. He was completely burned all the way down to the bone, okay? On 80% of his body. First and foremost, the body sitting up there on that monitor did not have 4th-degree burns on 80% of his body, I'll tell you that right now. But, I mean, if he had, there'd be like exposed, but he'd be a friggin' charred skeleton, okay? And yet they said that if he lives, so there's always a chance he won't, which is true with massive 3rd-degree burns too. But if he lives, he'll be confined to a wheelchair because he did lose a leg. Honestly, I would think the fact that he would have no more flesh, muscle, or anything like that would be far more of a problem. 80% of his body is completely destroyed, cooked, fried. But whatever. I guess future medicine or something. Maybe we'll swing with that. But the fact that his wife is actually the one who, originally, so far as I know, they thought he was dead. He for all intents and purposes was dead. They bury his identity and everything. His wife's gone, his kid's gone, his house empty, or lived in by someone else. I can't remember which. Gosh, it's been a while since I've seen the movie. But I do specifically remember, his wife's gone, son's gone, and he's just, in this, he's. We're gonna address this aspect in a minute, but his wife signs him over basically. Just so that he's not going to be confined to a wheelchair his whole life. So he's now a cyborg. And that's where we immediately get to the next problem. When he's activated and goes online and sees the difference and sees what happened, he is aware that he is Alex Murphy. He is aware of who he is. His identity, 100% intact. They've made him completely the same. Now, here's the other thing that I want to talk about, though. His hand. Now, see, a lot of people are complaining that they kept a human hand. I'm not. because it's actually one of the decisions they made in the movie that when you read it on paper actually does make sense. One of the few that does make sense. It's a case where this is a society where robots, drones, a lot of the police work worldwide, a lot of the fighting worldwide is done by robots, drones, etc. But in the United States of America, people still don't trust them. They want that human element there, the conscience, the ability to say no, to make a moral choice. They think robots don't have that. They don't trust them, so they've banned them from domestic use. And OCP, who makes money off of this stuff, is unable to tap into the market because of that. And so they figure, how are we going to be able to sell this to the people? And then Murphy comes along and presents them this opportunity. We'll put a man inside the machine, and the hand is kept for the purpose of that, the familiarity. You shake his hand, you're gonna feel flesh and blood and not cold steel. There's a purpose to it. I do, however, think it's kind of weird because I'm pretty sure that hand supposedly had fourth-degree burns. So what, did they attach another hand? I don't know. Excuse me. Moving onward. It's upsetting. They have him initially. See, here's where I got the most upset. He's now initially the original colors of RoboCop, but they decide no, make him black, make him more tactical, something like a black, and he comes out wearing the bastard child of Nolan's bat suit and the Green Goblin Ranger's armor from Raimi Man 1. Okay. And it's like an Iron Man helmet thing too. His helmet retracts to the back of his head. See, that's the other thing. When you when you saw him in the original RoboCop, his face looked so stretched, and his eyes were like permanently open wide, like not relaxed, wide open, face tight. And he looked like he was in some degree of pain or like contorted, like his face was like reconstructed and fit over a skull that was, half hardware. The back of his head was completely cybernetic. It looked like a very painful and, literal fusion of man and machine. This, when you look at his head, it looks like something an astronaut wears under their, when they're about to do a spacewalk, under the helmet. It's got the covering, and he literally looks like a guy in a Tron suit or something, with an Iron Man helmet that pops out of the back of his neck and comes up over his face. So I have no idea why they did that, and the color change is literally done just for the sake of doing it. That's one of the things I mean by change for the sake of change. There was no need. There's literally no need. You can differentiate your movie from the original movie without having to do something like that. This isn't like a minor tweak either. Honestly, the hand was a minor tweak I could have lived with. It's like Superman losing his undies. Okay? I can live with that. It's a tweak. The overall thing is still there. The color scheme's still red and blue. This, I can do with the human hand. I can, but why can't at least the color scheme be the same? There's really no reason to change it. His auto 9mm it gets replaced by something that looks like an MP5 that pops out of his hip, and it's funny too because it's like a normal size MP5, but in order to fit it in his hip, it has to be a retractable MP5. So like the clip, the grip, and the butt of the gun, retract into it and go in, and then when they pop out those parts too. It's wow. But anyway, the next thing though, his voice work, especially near the end of the trailer. Oh my gosh. When you hear him say "dead or alive, you're coming with me." When you heard Peter Weller say it was said with authority. It was said, with power. There was an intimidation factor, especially upon seeing this giant, hulking robot coming at you. See, that was honestly, that's another thing I see is people actually bashing the originals in favor of this in the trailer, talking about how, oh, he moves so slow, he was so big and bulky, this is more mobile, this is going to be faster, that makes him better. Not necessarily. Because when it comes to RoboCop, part of his intimidation factor, very similar to Jason Voorhees in the Friday the 13th films. He's this very big, not necessarily the fastest moving, he's very big, very hulking, slower moving creature, but he's terrifying. It's part of his, fear factor, especially since, he's coming at you, you figure, oh, hey, I got time to, try to stab him with this. I got time to shoot him with this. And then when you do it, and then he just, shakes it off and keeps coming right at you, that's part of the intimidation factor, which is something that is expressed well in the original film. It's like, they take a shot at this guy, bullets are bouncing off him, and he's just, taking that one step closer, the ching, ching, one step closer, and, they get more desperate. It's something that, and it puts out a believable degree of intimidation and fear. But this, it really doesn't. His voice is just too soft, too gentle. I mean, you'd figure that they could digitize it and deepen it or something in the RoboCop form, but they don't. It's just like a filter. And I honestly don't know. It's just they also redesigned Ed 209. He doesn't even look like Ed 209 anymore. He looks like a Metal Gear. Legit looks like a Metal Gear. The regular contact with his family. See, this is something that bothers me. The original impact of the movies stemmed from Murphy having his identity completely suppressed. He was a complete machine, to more or less. The reason that they had used him is because the human brain was the AI component that they considered advanced enough, to support and sustain this thing. It's one reason why they didn't have much luck with the program at first. They couldn't quite get the AI, comprehensive and responsive enough to be useful on its own, save for basic duties. But when they take that away in this movie, it's like, his identity had been suppressed, save for these flashbacks he kept getting. It's whether or not, the question of whether or not he was still human was something that came up. Am I a man or am I a machine? This, you really don't have that. He's still a man inside the machine, but instead of, having suppressed his memory and then having him remember it, reclaim it, having a subtle, whether he realized it or not, revenge quest to get the guys who did this to him. Also, he had to deal with the fact that his directives, his programming, kept him from taking action that he needed to take in order to get it. Stuff like that, it made it very impactful. It made it very difficult to watch. It felt like a real struggle for him to reclaim who he was. To serve and protect again and not just be a toy, a puppet. But in this, he's got free will to a degree, but they simply manipulate him and make him think that it's free will when in actuality he's doing exactly what they want him to do. The illusion of free will, they call it. But then they also say that he's simply overriding, because of the human emotion factor, he's overriding the programming, the directives. He's just taking over because of the power of love, I guess. I don't know, his wife and his kids show up repeatedly. This after, of course, they signed him over to be this, but he's not even allowed to go home because apparently for whatever magical reason, he has to go back to OCP every night because he has no more immune system and they have to flush his blood out or else he's going to get a disease and die? That makes no sense, honestly. It really doesn't. I mean, if he's still got blood and he still has a heart pumping that blood, presumably, why would he not have the means of creating white blood cells? I don't understand that. And what are they gonna? How are they gonna clean his blood every night? Why can't they, treat him and send him home or something? I mean, I suppose it's a clean room, but still, it's just weird. Why would they? If he's got no immune system, then honestly, even just leaving the OCP building could be lethal. So I don't understand how that works, but okay. But now, he knows who they are. They're still, he still has contact with them. He still has his identity. It just kind of takes away from what made RoboCop so good. And to hear the director tell it, this is really no different than Keaton's Batman and Bale's Batman in terms of differences. No. No, see, this is completely changing who the character is. See, the difference is Keaton's Batman and Bale's Batman both became Batman when their parents died. They resolved that they weren't going to allow anyone else to feel this kind of pain again. They took on the mantle of Batman. That's something they have in common. And this is the difference. This would be like if friggin' Bruce had Alfred or his parents be concerned about his well-being, and so they send him off to superhero boot camp, and he comes back the Batman and has to, try to carve out his own identity instead of serving the boot camp. Even though he knows fully who he is. It's weird, It's very much not RoboCop. Like, I know there's going to be some differences. I know people don't want to see a shot-for-shot remake. No duh. Stop right there, okay? Nobody's saying that. What I am saying, though, is that there are certain things about the original that you kind of needed to keep, or at least, try to incorporate somehow. Instead, they just kind of kicked everything to the curb. They're also claiming that all the social satire and irony is still there, even though you don't see a lick of it anywhere in the promotional material yet. At least not that I've seen. So they best be putting out something that can convince me otherwise of that. But it's just so frustrating to see them do this literally just for the sake of doing it, They even, instead of facing off against a friggin' the group of guys that killed him, he goes up against a robot army, of suits that were the prototype for what he is. So it also really seems like they're going for the bigger, badder effect. And for people who don't know what that is, it's sort of a moment in literature or media wherein you're replacing an established character with a new one, or doing the same character in a different format, and you feel a need to convince people that your character is, somehow better than the last one or more superior, or just out of desperation to make them likable. You soup them up. You give them power that the original didn't have. You give them feats that the original didn't have. And sadly, a lot, and I mean a lot, of series fall prey to this. There's really no hiding from it. Sadly, one example of the bigger, better effect was Ben Reilly when he first took over as Spider-Man. To have him go up against Venom shortly after Peter left, and to beat him handily just by creating a new means of firing webbing that somehow Peter had never once thought of, And it wasn't just a case of, he beat him, like, easily. Venom, someone who Peter had, struggled for his life. It was something, this is a less extreme example because they didn't do stuff like that terribly often, but there you go. There's a case. Another one arguably is Korra from Legend of Korra, who, when Aang was the Avatar, he, had to fight to learn his elements, but when she's the Avatar, she somehow knows every element as a frickin' little kid, including fire, which is her opposite and is thus the hardest for her to learn. But she just can't master air, which she apparently gets the hang of by the end of book 1, whereas it took Aang all 3 books to get all 3 elements down completely. So yeah, it's like, by the end of book one, I'm where you were by the end of book three. Aren't I awesome? It's stuff like that. You know, I'm not gonna knock the show. I'm not trying to say that it's necessarily bad. I do honestly think that's bad writing, though. I do. I'm sorry, but I that's about all the further I'm ever talking about that show. So that's that. Um, but it's just very, very much prevalent here, and I'm very disappointed to see it. And all in all, this really just looks like a generic action movie. This looks like something Michael Bay would have dreamt up. Um, very generic, very much, it's like they completely missed the point of the original films. It looks like, yeah, sure, generic, fun maybe, but generic. I might mess with it when it comes out on DVD, but until then, unless I see something that really majorly changes my mind, I don't think I'm gonna bother to see this. But who knows? At any rate, that's what I thought about the trailer, and tell me what you guys thought. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to talk about, and I will catch you later. Peace.